AJ, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
Good, man. So, ask you to come on because you have experience with being a veteran.
Sure do. Yeah.
And it's a big part of our world.
Yeah.
And I just asked you before. You were a Marine.
Yes. Yeah. 2011 to 2015. One
Okay.
enlistment. End of Afghanistan.
And you did a tour in Afghanistan, or?
Yeah. I was there October 2013 to when's Easter? April?
April, yeah.
April 2014.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was my deployment time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was cool.
Got it. Was it wild?
Yeah, honestly, I actually was in the wrong unit for 6 months, and then the unit that I was supposed to go to, the one that I deployed with, was currently running deployment, so I had missed my first, technically would have been my first deployment, and then I got there right as in the middle of all my lifelong friends now. They were in the middle of their first deployment when I got to the right unit. Yeah.
Gotcha. So let me kind of just back up a little bit. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Carson, California.
Okay.
And then I ended up moving to Huntington Beach for high school.
Okay.
Yeah, but I bounced around most places in SoCal.
In Orange County, LA.
Yeah, like Yorba Linda, Anaheim. My grandparents immigrated here from the Philippines, and they ended up getting a home in Anaheim. So like a lot of my young childhood was there.
Okay. So you're from a Filipino family.
Yeah.
You guys are close knit.
Yeah,
right?
we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you grew up. Your grandparents came over here, and that's your mom's parents, dad's parents.
My mom's parents.
Okay.
They all kind of came through, but I think it was 1976 is when they pulled up to the States.
Okay.
So
why did a lot? So there's a lot of Filipino families that came over during that time. I don't know much. Like, was there a reason? Or?
Yeah. So I don't know. You're gonna have to fact check me on this, but I know that my grandpa's brother was in the Navy, and he was able to apply for visas for my grandpa, and they were like, "Yo, you can come to America and get a better life. I just have to sign for you." And then they ended up just immigrating this way, and they saw an opportunity and they took it. And I remember I would ask my mom, I was like, "Hey, what was some of the reasons for you guys wanting to immigrate here?" And she was like, "Your grandpa saw that there was no money being in the police force over there." And she was like, "He saw a way out, and we just had to trust the process, and then we followed him here, and then we made sure that whatever we decided to do, we just wanted to give you guys a better life." And I wasn't even like in my mom's head yet, So
your grandpa was in the United States Navy.
My grandpa's brother.
As a Filipino citizen, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I know this, that for a while to fill the Navy, what they did was, I think it was after like the Filipino-Spanish War, America came and helped us out. A ton of nurses came and helped in, I think it was like the 40s. I could be wrong, but it was something like that. Then they had issued something saying, like, if you want to come and join the Navy, we'll give you citizenship, and whatever the case is. So a ton of Filipinos took the opportunity to go and join it's the Navy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So growing up, you knew about military. Was that kind of like something that maybe did you always have in your mind you were going to join the military?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I didn't want to. Both my uncles were in the Navy. I would see their pictures in their little sailor outfit, and I was like, "You guys look weird."
Yeah. Yeah. So you bounced around Orange County a little bit. Ended up going to high school in Huntington.
Yeah, I went to Edison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Edison High School.
That was cool.
Okay.
That was for sure. My mom had remarried in 2006, I believe, and then I was a bad kid growing up. So my Filipino dad was like, "I can't handle your shenanigans, man. Like, you need to go to your mom." And then I was like, "All right, cool, let's run it." And then so I did middle school in Carson, and then I moved to Huntington for all of high school.
How were you in high school?
I was a social butterfly. I wasn't like a bad kid or anything. I tried to stay out of trouble for the most part. But, I never applied myself. I was one of those kids where if my mom would come into a parent-teacher conference, they would always be like, "He's not dumb, but he also doesn't work hard."
Yeah.
And I was like, "All right, cool."
Yeah.
So.
Like a lot of us.
Yeah, a ton. My senior year, my mom had to meet with my vice principal, and my vice principal sat my mom down and was like, I don't know how your son did it, but he managed to graduate with a 1.9, and he's incredible at talking to people.
Right.
And she was like, I don't know whether to be insulted or complimented. And my
Yeah.
mom was like, hey, that's embarrassing, dog. I was like, hey, I did the job, man.
Yeah.
I graduated. So.
All right. Play any sports?
I wrestled.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrestled, and then I tried out for the basketball team, but I was too little.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Kept your grades up enough just to be eligible for wrestling?
Barely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it just to do sports, just to like do something. So
There you go.
yeah.
So in high school, did you know you were going to join the military, or you were considering it? Like as you got to your
No.
senior year, what were you thinking? I mean, that's that stage where you ask an 18-year-old kid, hey, what are you going to do now? And you're like, I don't know.
No, that was exactly it. From like 18 to 19, it was just nothing. I worked as like after I graduated high school, my stepdad was like, hey, if you want to continue living with us, you have to go to school. And I was like, okay. And then I applied for Golden West. I had applied too late, and I think all 6 of my classes were all electives. And he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then I think somewhere in the semester I ended up dropping out. And my stepdad was like, hey, dude, the rule was if you don't go to school, you can't be here. So then I ended up moving back to Carson with my Filipino dad. And then that's where like joining the military started entering my brain pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 19, and it started entering your brain. Then how did you like decide, okay, I'm going to join the military, and then how did you decide I'm going to be a Marine?
The recruiter got me, man. The recruiter did a damn good job. And I just, I don't know what it was. I probably was like,
Did you walk in there, or how'd you find
Yeah,
it? You
so-
just walk in there?
So one of the starts to it was I worked as a security guard for Florentine Gardens for this the security company, and there was one night where a shooting happened, and I was outside. There was like a parking lot, and then a shooting happened right outside the parking lots. These 2 dudes were fighting, and then one dude let off rounds, and I was like, I don't want to do this, dude. I was like, this is scary. And then I think like a week later, I ended up walking into like a recruiting station. And then the recruiter was like, hey, man, listen. He was like, I need you for numbers. Like, you're going to meet my quota. But honestly, the Marines don't need you. And then in my head, my 19-year-old head, I was like, the Marines need me. They really need me. They've never seen somebody like me. And then that's how he got me. And I was like, God.
Takeaway sale.
I was
yeah.
like, dude, he got me so good.
Yeah.
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 So then at 20, that's when I ended up joining the Marines. I stayed in the delayed entry program for a while. And then I did it around 20, yeah.
And then
May.
you did your boot camp down in,
San Diego.
okay.
Yeah, MCRD.
There's like 2 places to do it, right? San Diego and
Paris Island.
and Florida.
Yeah.
And those guys in Florida make fun of you guys.
Yeah,
for-
dude, they're fucking pussies, dude. They're talking about they get eaten by flies. We're climbing mountains.
Yeah.
Those guys, man, they're chilling on a beach with their toes in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I've been down to Pendleton a bunch.
I love it.
It's pretty impressive.
That
yeah.
honestly, the military was the best thing for me. Like, I'm kind of glad I had gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
And some people, they'll credit their college experience to a ton, but you can never take away from like the stuff that I did in the military. And I think that was, for me at least, was more valuable. I've never been a good student, but I've always been good at learning. And the thing is like, I figured out my learning style in the military is just kind of like, I kind of have to fuck up a few times, and I'm not going to get it right the first time around. And being in the military gave me that like structure to do that, to mess up and kind of figure my things out. So yeah, that was really dope.
What kind of things, like just life lessons and things you said the military helped you out the most? What go into some of that stuff? Like, what did it help you with the most?
Really, it's perseverance and structure.
Okay.
Like, nothing is going to last forever is what I learned in the military. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but as long as you keep moving one foot in front of the other, like, the day's going to end eventually. And then you get to reset every time. So that was one of the things, too. And it's just, like, the intestinal fortitude to continue on even when you don't want to. And if you, like, stay committed to certain things, it's, I think one of the big things about the military was it just gave me structure for my life that I started to implement after I had got out. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about the military.
Okay. So you go to boot camp, and then what was your job? Like,
I just went to boot camp. I got slayed out there. We got torched. We're obviously they're trying to break us in. And then after boot camp, I ended up graduating. and then I go to schooling in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I'm a motor T operator, so I'm like a truck driver basically, and then I'm there for 3 months, and then from there I end up going to my unit, which was the wrong one, the one that I was telling you about. So I'm like sitting there, and my unit didn't find out until we had to take a.
So what do you mean you went to the wrong unit?
Like, so there's a ton of units in the military, and basically what happened was, for whatever reason, my orders was for 1-1 in Camp Horno, and that's where I thought I was going to be. It took them about 6 months and a piss test to realize, like, it was a battalion-wide piss test, so it was, I don't know, maybe 500 Marines or something like that. They're looking at the paperwork, and they're like, hey, you're not on our roster anywhere. So they go back up, and they reach to headquarters Marines, and they're like, hey, we have this dude. We don't know where he's supposed to go. Come to find out, I had been in the wrong unit for...
Where were you when they figured that out?
I was working. I was, like, in the motor pool and everything.
But where? Like, what? In the United States? Were you...
Yeah. I was,
Okay.
dude, I was so lucky. I was stationed at Pendleton my entire enlistment.
Okay.
Because after you graduate, after you finish up your MOS school, they give you options of where you want to go, and mine was either I want to be super close to home or I want to be overseas. So my two picks were Japan and California, and I was like, I don't want to be at Paris Island. I don't want to be in Florida. Like, it's fine. And then, luckily for me, I ended up getting stationed in San Diego. And I was like, this is perfect. I get to go home every weekend. Some people don't have family. I'm lucky enough that I drive 45 minutes and I get a home-cooked meal from mom, you know?
Right.
So that was really nice.
Yeah. Okay, so you're stationed in Pendleton. All this stuff's going on in Iraq at the time. Did that Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was after, yeah. Okay.
2013.
2013.
Yeah, because I remember right before I had joined, I had a couple buddies who joined too, and they were in the heat of battle in Afghanistan.
That's like a long time after 9/11 too, and we were still
yeah,
in
but we were
Afghanistan.
occupying, like, our job. Luckily for us, our job was to demill and support the voting system in Afghanistan. That's what we were there for, and we knew we were at the end of the war. We were like at the tail end of the war, so our job essentially was to take whatever bases that we had and then just draw them back in.
Because that was 12 years after.
Yeah.
9/11 was 2001, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you find out you were going to Afghanistan?
It was October. It had to be the beginning of 2013.
And how do you find out? They just
tell you.
They just tell you, like,
They're like,
in
hey,
a meeting?
yeah, you're in your platoon formation. They're like, hey guys, we just got orders. We're gonna start training here pretty soon. You guys are all deploying to Afghanistan, so don't get hurt in these next few months. Like, make sure we're doing all the right things so that you guys are prepared for when you guys go out there. And I was like, all right, cool. But I was scared shitless when they had told us. I was like, this is terrifying, because I thought I was gonna go on Muse. I wanted to do like humanitarian trips and help out like other countries, but for whatever reason, my naivety, if you will, made me think that I wouldn't get deployed overseas like that, and then it just ended up happening. So
you're sitting in formation.
And then they're like, hey, you guys are deploying. We're going to separate you guys in the companies that you need to go to. You guys will be support. You guys will be with whatever Alpha, Bravo, Charlie company. I ended up staying with the support unit, and then we just started training from there.
Okay, so you trained to go there, and then what, they put you on a big-ass airplane and fly you over there? How does that work?
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. I think we left out of March Air Force Base, and then we stopped over in Kazakhstan, and then we were in Manas for a little bit, and then from there we went to Afghanistan, and that was crazy.
Okay, so you get off the plane in Afghanistan. What's that like?
They hand you a body bag, and they're like, hey, you might come home in this. And then they're like, you guys ready to go to your guys' new homes? And I'm like, sure.
You get off the plane and they hand you a body bag?
Yeah, they like show you. They're like, hey, listen, like after we get all our bags, like we have some staff NCOs that come pull up, and they're like, hey, dude, listen, this isn't frou-frou games anymore. Now it's war zone time. If something happens, this is how you're going to go home. And then they showed the entire...
So wait, they hand you a body bag?
Yeah, they're
and
like
that's
showing
part of
us.
or they show you?
Yeah.
And do they give it to you?
They're like showing us through, and they're like, hey, this is how you're going to come home. Some of you are gonna come home like this. And I'm just like, all right, I
And
guess.
what's the purpose of that? For you to take what you're doing very seriously?
Yeah, you need to know, man, because
Okay.
it's like you don't people.
That doesn't like sound like mental health, like positive right there. It's
No,
like,
it's
here's
not.
a body bag. You may come home.
You're there to do a job, and you like I learned how to disassociate. So it was just kind of like, all right, well, the job needs to get done. Like I signed up for this. Nobody put a gun to my head and was
Yeah.
like, hey, join the military. When push came to shove, I had to be okay with the fact that I'm 20, 21, 22 years old, getting ready to fight a war, and I was like, what is this? You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what the introduction, like the first day was. We're settling in. We're talking to like the guys from the previous units who's doing that. We know we're gonna do like changeovers and stuff like that. And yeah, that was pretty eye opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what?
Then we get into the workflow. It takes about maybe like a couple weeks, and then we start transitioning over. I think we replaced. I can't remember the unit that we replaced, but we started doing missions with them for like the first month because they were getting ready to get out of there.
Okay.
And then so, like I said, a lot of that deployment for me was just DMIL. It was bringing a ton of stuff back. And I think that I was pretty lucky and fortunate to be part of that deployment because we did damn near no fighting. And our rules of engagement was a lot different because we were taking everything back. We were there to win the hearts and minds of the people, and we just had to make sure that we didn't do anything crazy. And that like it was kind of weird because like we couldn't do anything. We couldn't fight unless they told us it was okay to, almost.
What have you got shot at?
We would have to call it up.
Get permission? Hey, this guy just shot at me. Can I shoot back,
Yes.
please?
Yeah.
Really?
That's exactly what it was. And we had to worry
Holy
about
shit.
IED bombers. And then we were like, hey, dude, we think that this guy might try to blow us up. And they were like, well, stand by. And I'm like, what do you mean stand by?
Wow.
So, yeah. Because we were leaving. If it was in the middle of it, if I had went in 2009 or 2010, there was no rules of engagement. They were fighting.
Okay, but those rules of engagement, we probably had people die because of those.
For sure. For
Like,
sure.
Our kids, our 20-something
Yeah, it's gnarly. We-
died because
It's
you had to call and ask permission if a guy was
Yes.
getting ready to blow you up. You
Yeah.
could shoot him.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Wow.
It was cool though. It was like this whole weird thing. I tell people all the time, it was like I had trouble sleeping my whole life. The best sleep I ever got was between 2013 and 2014 when I was in Afghanistan. Some of the best sleep of my life.
Why do you think that is? Because you just were worn out?
No, I think it was
exhausted,
'cause
or you were just locked in and focused?
I think it was because I was locked in and I was like, every day I thought, legitimately, me and my friends, I just thought we might die. So I was like, might as well get some good sleep. Like the stress of that was just, I don't know. I felt so good sleeping because you made it past another day if you fell asleep.
Okay.
That was kind of like my mentality. If I was able to sit up and at the end of a mission, if I was still in my cot or when we got back to Leatherneck, if I was in my bed, I was like, I made it. That's one win right there. That's another day.
So is that how you just kind of mentally got through it? Just tried to get through
A
one?
ton. I basically how I scheduled my day out was like if I could make it to each meal, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So like if I woke up and I made it to breakfast, that's a win. If I was working and we were on a mission, if I had time to get lunch, that was a win. If I made it to dinner with some of my homies next to a fire, that was a win. Every little one of those, that's how I would like break down the days.
Did you get a little more comfortable as time went on, or was it always you were always on edge like that?
Yeah, I think like the first month was really the hardest transition, but then once you settle into the fact that like you're there, the rest of the 7 months were okay. It was just like, all right, just make sure to get home. That was
How did other guys handle that? I mean, these are you guys are kids.
some dudes were
over
crying.
there.
Yeah, dude, we're young, man. We're like 20. We're stupid.
Yeah.
But there were kids who had a couple. Well, Marines. There were Marines who they had breakdowns. Some of them like didn't really understand what we were doing. And then all of a sudden, now we're put in a position where, we're here to fight this crazy war over nonsense and stupid stuff. And they're like, what are we doing here? And it's like, hey, we're here for a job. Like, we're basically contracted. This is what we have to do.
This isn't a war like past wars, like that maybe like people believed in. This was like
Yeah.
12 years after 9/11.
Yeah.
a lot of those kids. I mean, how old were you when 9/11 happened?
What was it?
2001.
10. I was in the 4th grade.
So you were 10 years old when
I
that
was
happened.
10 years old
You were
when
a
that
kid.
happened. I was a baby, yeah.
You know, as an adult, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
probably affected me way differently than
For
it
sure.
affected
I
you.
didn't know the detriment of 9/11. I was like so young that I just was like, "Oh, we got blown up." I had like no concept of that. It didn't cross my mind that we had been attacked when I was in the 4th grade. I think about that constantly cuz I was like, "What?" I just remember that it happened. My 4th grade teacher ended up crying because I think one of her children was in New York at the time.
Oh, wow.
And then I remember walking home that day.
Wow.
But
So you're there 12 years later.
Yep.
We're pulling back.
Yep.
If somebody shoots at you, you have to call somebody
I
on the
gotta ask
radio and get
permission.
permission to shoot them back
Yeah.
and duck while it's going on.
Yep. I'm just taking fire, and then I'm
Now,
just
did
like,
that ever happen?
No, I got pretty lucky, like I said. So that we came in during what they call non-fighting season, which is wintertime over there. So when it's not fighting season, it's too cold. They're not going to come out. It's freezing. We were stuck in snowstorms and shit like that.
Okay.
So then for 4 months out of that deployment, we were just in the cold, you know. I think the craziest thing that had happened to me was I had a little Afghan kid come up to me and ask me for like food, and I told him, I was like, "Nishka, man, I ain't got nothing for you." And then he's like, "Okay." And then he ends up leaving, and then he runs back up to me and he's like, "Hey, Marine, I'm on top of my truck." And then he just looks at me and he goes, "Fuck you," pulls out a machete, starts hitting my truck. And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I don't want to shoot a little kid, man."
Yeah.
And then, like, luckily for me, it had to be like a dad or an uncle or somebody just came out of nowhere, snatched this kid up and took him away. And then my stress was so high at that point. And I just remember when he got dragged away, I was like, "I'm good. We're okay. We're okay. We don't have to worry about any of that." That was like probably one of the most, not like traumatic, but that one was the one that elevated my heart rate the most.
Yeah, because you hear about little kids being part of.
They're crazy and they're so strong. They could, dude, those kids, we had like 6-inch like windows for explosives. These kids would throw rocks and spider web our windows. They would drive these little busted up motorcycles. Those Afghani kids, bro, they could be baseball players and motocross racers.
Bro,
It was, dude,
they're good. Yeah.
so sick. I was like, this is gnarly. I had buddies in a turret, and we couldn't do anything. And these little kids, probably like, I don't know, a distance, but they would pocket where my buddies were in the turret and just knock my friends' teeth out. I'd be in a truck.
With a rock?
Yes. I would be in a truck. I would look at my buddy, and then all of a sudden he would turn to where the kids were. And then he would turn back to me, and all of a sudden his tooth is gone. I'm like, "Are we taking fire?" He's like, "Nah, I just ate a rock." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're there 7 months.
Yep.
Did anything happen to any of your friends while they were there, or did you lose anybody that
We
you
did.
knew?
We lost one of our guys. I believe he was in Charlie Company, but it was right before the winter happened. Oh, actually, it was December. It was December. They got hit with an IED, and I was supposed to be the recovery driver to go pick up that vehicle. And I ended up getting taken off that. My staff sergeant was like, "Hey, you've been going on a ton of missions. We're going to let somebody else take over this one. Like, just be ready for the next one." And then we had a whole ceremony to send him back. But that day was the day when I realized, like, oh, it's so like there's 100% chance that you can die here. Like, it's not a joke anymore. The whole time you're thinking about it and you know it's going to happen, but then when you actually lose somebody, you're like, I just remember when they had pulled up from recovering the vehicle, they ended up debriefing, and then they had to tell the guys who weren't on that mission that one of the Marines had got killed. And I would see his friends just have, they would have breakdowns. And I was just like, this is insanity. I think he was like 19 when he died too.
Yeah.
I think his name was Rod. And it sucks because you want to say that you know everybody, but like I knew him in passing, and I knew that he was a really cool kid, but I knew more of his homies than I did him himself. And when we had to send his body back to the States, it was us, the French, New Zealand, and some other like military from different companies. We would go to the flight deck and send the bodies back home, and I just remember that was one of the heaviest days of my life.
So you went to the flight deck, and there was bodies from other countries there too?
Yeah, they would. Because there was New Zealand and France that was there, and then UK. So
And they all had bodies that were going back?
they were sending back. Yeah.
And then was there more than just the American body from your company?
Yes, there was. Dude, I think I blocked it out, but I just remember we sent bodies from a ton of different countries home. They were just going home. That's all I knew.
And you were on the flight deck, and you just saw these.
We stood there
coffins.
in silence, and then I think it was 4 for us, and then like other planes had other guys, these dudes that they had lost. But that was a super intense day for me, and I was just like, damn, this is crazy. I felt more bad for my buddies who were close with Rod, and that's the one where I was just like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sobering.
It's gnarly for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to Pendleton. I used to volunteer with one of our groups at our church, and we would go run the chapel down at the range down there for the recruits.
Yeah.
And just realizing, like, because I was coaching high school football at the time, and looking at these kids, like,
we're children,
they're
dude.
kids, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were so young. I look back on it now, and I'm just like, dude, I was like legit still a baby. Like anybody under 27 is a baby. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
Like, especially a dude, they're not even mentally capable to understand half the shit that they're doing, you know? So
Okay, so you get to the end of that. When did you find? Was it just planned to be there 7 months, or you had an end date, or how does that work?
yeah, so our date, we knew around February that we were going to start heading back. February, March, April. February is when they were like, hey, they're planning and they're prepping to get the replacement unit for you guys.
Got it.
So then I just had to buckle down and just be like, all right, there's a few more months left, whatever the case is. And I was ready to get extended, so whatever they need. Because when we got to Afghanistan, I was all in. I was like, all right, it is what it is. If you're going to keep me here for 8 months, if you're going to keep me here for like 14, I'll stay. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it was nice. And money was untaxed, so I was able to send money home, and I felt good about that, being able to send Mama some bread. And
That's
I was
cool.
Like, hey, here it is.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for all the times you took care of me. Here's a little something. I would send some to my sister, and it was like I was able to provide. Comfortably.
Made you feel like a man, and you're doing things.
Yeah, I felt really
You're
good.
not that knucklehead.
No,
that
because
was
then
graduating with a 1.9, right?
Yeah, it was gnarly. Yeah.
Okay, so you go home from Afghanistan.
Yep.
Back to Camp Pendleton.
Yep.
And then how much longer were you in the military? What was that like?
March. A little bit under a year, because I ended up getting out. When we got back from Afghanistan, everybody took about a month of vacation, and I took just a weekend because I wanted to save all my dates for when I got out. So while all my buddies from the deployment ended up going back home for 4 weeks at a time, I was literally back at work that next Tuesday. And then I was like, all right, let's just do it. And I just held on to basically like my PTO, because I knew when I decided to get out, or if I decided to get out, I would have X amount of days that I wouldn't have to work, and they would still have to pay me for that. And I was like, I'll just hold on to that, you know? So that's kind of what I did.
Okay. So when do you find out you're getting out? Did you always have is it like a contract when you join the military?
Yeah,
this is your end date, and you're enlisted for this amount of time?
So you'll be actively enlisted. Mine was an 8-year contract. So I'm actively enlisted for 4 years, and I'm inactively enlisted for another 4. So technically, after I get out, if something happens, they can recall me within those 8 years.
Gotcha.
If nothing happens between those 4 years that you get out, once that date is finalized, they can't call you back for nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, that's fine.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of what we talked about before. Like, a big part of this podcast is like, what is that like when you're as a young person, you're trained to drive a truck in a war zone, and that's your training. That's your career.
Yeah, that was my livelihood.
You know, and so that's what you know how to do. And a lot of guys that are in the infantry and like, their career is how to shoot a gun. Yeah.
How to change and clean a gun.
Yeah. And so like, what is that like going, okay, now it's time to get out. Here's the real world. What support do you get from the military in that?
I got lucky because I've had a ton of veterans in my life, so they guided me in the right things to do after I had got out. So for me, I was pretty blessed in the sense of I had good guidance and good leadership to kind of figure out what was happening. But I think the hardest part of that was transitioning from the military back into the civilian life, because then you lose all structure, and once the structure is gone, you kind of just go a little bit crazy because there's nobody else to tell you what to do. And my thing was like, I think for the first couple of years, like I don't think I respected myself when I got out the military, so I just wouldn't listen to me. And like I knew I had to do certain things, but after I had got out was one of the hardest transitions that I think so many people don't talk about. Is because you go from being told what to eat, how to make your bed, what time to be somewhere.
Everything's scheduled for you.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Then when you get out, nobody's telling you nothing.
Yeah.
And the world's not going to tell you. So that was the hardest adjustment, hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get out. What do you mean you went crazy? Like, what does that look like?
When I got out, I knew I wanted to start smoking a ton of weed because I smoked a ton of weed before I had joined the military.
And you can't smoke weed in the military.
No, and I didn't want to risk it because I remember 2 years being enlisted, I was like, oh, maybe I'll make this a career. And I told myself, I was like, respect yourself enough to not get yourself in trouble. If you're going to get in trouble, it's not going to be because of drinking, and it's not going to be because of drug use. I was like, you do all the right things that you need to do. You stay away from trouble. And you just protect the dudes around you. That was like my goal when I was in the military. So I would drink, but I was a casual drinker. I would like a weekend drinker, you know. Yeah. And so I end up getting out, and one of the first thing I do is I just hit up my buddies who had got out around the same time, and I'm like, hey, dude, we need to get some blunts. And then we celebrated, but I feel like we celebrated too long because it was just maybe a year of just nonstop smoking and just chilling.
Did you get a job?
For the first 6 months, I didn't. I was able to kind of cruise because I had the savings from the deployment, and I had about 90 days of paid leave. So I knew for at least 2 months I was just going to hang out.
Yeah.
And I knew, I was like, bills are paid. Food is taken care of. We don't have to worry about nothing. And I took those 2 months off seriously. I like slept in. I felt good.
Yeah.
It was nice. Yeah. It was really nice. Yeah. But where it all came to a head was maybe about a year later, where you start to realize like you're doing the same thing over and over and there's no progress in your life. And that's where I started to kind of freak out a little bit. And then that's where I was like, oh, I need to make decisions about my life because nobody else is going to do it. For the last 4 years, every decision was made for me. Now it's time for me to make my decisions and live with whatever I choose to do. So then I went back to school. I tried to become a personal trainer. I looked into like real estate, and it was just like I didn't want to do any of that stuff.
Yeah. Kind of like the stuff most 20-something-year-olds go through. It's like, yeah, what do you want to do the rest of your life?
That was such a daunting question to one, ask myself, and to be completely truthful about it to me too. Yeah. So, yeah, that was for sure one of the hard parts.
When you say you had like veterans in your life that kind of guided you, who were those guys? What did that look like?
I had some uncles. And I had like family friends who were also in the military. And so a lot of them would tell me, like, when you get out, you need to start prepping at what you think you're going to do and how you're going to help yourself in kind of like you just want to guide yourself. Those people were there. I asked a ton of questions when I got out. I was like, so what did you do? A lot of them ended up being on disability, which is good for them. And I 100% believe this. If you pushed papers or if you pulled a trigger, the country owes you. I don't give a fuck what you did. I was like, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
I was like, because at any moment, whether you flip burgers, sign checks, or cleaned machine guns, at any point in time, they were able to take you and put you wherever the fuck they wanted to. And so to me, it was like anybody who filed for any sort of disability claim, I was always on their side. Because I knew you never knew. You never knew. And that was like my big thing. And I got help. I ended up getting hurt, and I got help with my disability. So I had a lot of vets guide me on how to get those claims seen and get looked at and make sure that I was taken care of as far as medical was concerned, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful for that.
So you got on disability for a while, and you were able to kind of use that time to think and reflect and
hang out. Yeah. 100%. For sure.
What do you think, like the biggest struggle, like guys that don't have that guidance and people to ask go through when they get out of the military? Like, what is that like for those guys?
I would imagine tough. Yeah. Because if that was me, I would probably have some sort of disdain for the military. But because I was guided in the right direction, like, I'm thankful and grateful. So like, there's a lot of dudes who get out, but there's also a lot of guys who get out of the military that don't want to do the work to get the help that they need. Yeah. So I was actively looking for help, and I'm not so worried about what other people think when I ask for help, because if it's gonna benefit me in some way, maybe I can share that information with somebody else. Yeah. And a lot of these guys, like the whole stereotype of being in the military and being like too macho, they don't want to ask for help. I thought that was a downfall for a ton of my friends. Yeah. I had to like sit down with some of my buddies and be like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, it's not like that anymore. You're not in the military. Like, you have an opportunity to help other people. Why are you not doing that? Or why are you not helping yourself so you can help other people? Yeah. So it's gotta suck. I could only imagine. Yeah. And
so is there anything, like any kind of assistance for people that?
Yeah, we have TAPS and TAMS, which is when you end up prepping to get out, they give you a ton of knowledge of what you can do. They set you up with like life insurance policies. They set you up with submitting your claims to the VA. There's a ton of programs when you get out to look for jobs. And then obviously we had the GI Bill. So a ton of people who went to school, we got paid good to go to school.
GI Bill's not a bad deal.
Not at all.
Yeah, when I coached at OCC, we had a couple kids on that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was on the GI Bill for like 3 years, I think. Yeah. I was trying to become like a communications major or something like that. Yeah. And I was getting paid, I was studying, and I was like legit trying to study too. And I was like, this is great, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that those programs, they're out there. But I think the first step is like wanting to get help for those programs, you know? Yeah. There's a ton of resources for veterans. That's like the other thing that kind of messes with me is like, men will always be stubborn. And like, if there's so many resources out there, like, just use them, bro. Yeah. Like, take the time. You deserve that. Yeah. So that was like my big thing.
Yeah. What about like, what's your opinion on like, you know, you sitting on that flight deck seeing those bodies go home? How'd that affect your mental health? And that had to be a traumatic experience. And a lot of guys had a lot more traumatic experiences of that. What's your opinion on like how guys deal with mental health when they come back and deal with kind of getting over that stuff?
I think the biggest thing for me was like to have a good support system. Like, you always have, fundamentally, from the guys that you end up being in the military with, you're going to have a lifelong bond with them. But on top of that, like, if you want to maintain that friendship and relationship, you have to always be there for when a call happens at 2 a.m. or whatever the case is. Because it's not, I've made it pretty clear with some of my best friends from the military that we know that if like the phone rings at 2, something is up, and it's like we should probably answer that no matter what's kind of going on. I think the big thing is that support system. You need a support system when you get out, and you need it from the guys that you were in the dirt with. It can't be from like your mom.
She's
it
not
can't
gonna
be from your
understand,
dad.
right?
Yeah. It's got to be from someone that you know when you guys went through the shit together, or somebody who's been through something similar. That's that's like one of the only ways that I see other military guys getting support is like through that. Yeah. So.
Okay. So you kind of searched around, right?
Yeah.
And then you're currently working for
A digital marketing company.
digital marketing company.
Yeah.
And so how did you stumble into working for a digital marketer? Or did you stumble, or is that something you purposely went after?
No, I
or-
think I for sure stumbled on it. So if we backtrack a little bit, when I got out in 2015, I did nothing from 2015 to 2016, and then somewhere along the lines, we were just talking about it, what I wanted to do, and I remember I had this piece of paper that I had in Afghanistan, and it was like a list of jobs that I wanted to do when I got out of the military. And it was the same thing. It was real estate, police officer, personal training, and there were like a couple other things. But at the very, very bottom of that list, it said entertainer ? So I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And then from 2016 to 2017, I decided I was going to go and do stand-up comedy.
That's right. You do stand-up comedy still, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, so 20. So you said I'm going to try stand-up comedy.
I was like, I'm going to try stand-up comedy.
And then, so tell me about the first. Like, how do you figure out like what do? You write some stuff down? How does that work?
I wrote some jokes. I found an open mic and I just went and I ate shit. I talked to chairs. It was like 1:30 in the morning and I was like, this is my big stand-up comedy debut. And I'm like, the world's going to know my name, dude.
Yeah.
I go to perform. The host is like, all right, come to the stage. First time, AJ Santos. And I walk on stage and I'm looking at empty chairs and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Was there anybody in the chairs?
Just the host and the bartender. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
All
I
right,
was
so
like,
you're talking to the host and the bartender.
I'm doing my bits and I'm just pretending that there's like 100 people in there.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling absolutely ridiculous. I
Yeah.
was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. And then sure enough, it took me like another 6 months to go and hit the stage again because, insecurities and whatnot.
Okay, so you did it that one time and you're like, fuck, I can't do this.
I was like, I don't want to do this. This is
Yeah,
terrifying.
right.
And then I had a stern talking to with my wife. And this was like the turning point of it all. It was like somewhere at the end of 2017. But I had fallen into this really gnarly depression. I couldn't pass basic math, and I constantly was taking like tutoring. I would sit extra with the teacher, but for whatever reason, when it came to numbers or just like basic math, I can't figure it out. And I had failed that class 2 times already, and I was just like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. And then my wife had came home one day, and she had already known about my want and need to go pursue comedy. She had seen me do it, and then she had came home one day and like she was a barber, so she had all this hair on her. And then I was super depressed, laying in bed, and she sat at the foot of the bed and just kind of like just touching her hands. And then this was one of the best things she had ever said to me. But she goes, hey, AJ. And I'm like, what's up? She was like, isn't it crazy that so many people believe in you, but you don't have the thought process to believe in yourself? And I was like, what? She was like, I believe in you, but it kind of feels like you don't believe in yourself. So what are we doing here? She was like, either you go after it or you don't. But she was like, I don't want to see you like this anymore. And then from that moment, I was just like, nobody has ever checked me like that besides like my family. And to have somebody be like, hey, you said you were going to do this. You know how to commit yourself. Why isn't anything happening? And she was like, even if you decide that you do this and you fail, I would rather watch you fail than be on this bed all day. And I was like, that's a good lady, man.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started really taking comedy
Okay, so what does your
seriously.
second performance look like?
Second performance, I vaguely remember, because then I remember it was just a ton of open micing is what I did, because I just had to figure it out. I knew for the first couple years, like I wasn't going to get booked. I didn't plan on getting booked. I just wanted to like find my voice.
Right.
And then what happened was I would go maybe 4 or 5 times a week. I would go out every night, figure out what my set was, who my voice is, who I am on stage, why am I funny, what makes me, like, what would make this fun for me. And then fast forward like a couple years, the pandemic hit, all the comedy ends, and I find an opportunity in that like all my peers that I've started comedy with, I like look up to these guys, and I'm like, man, these guys are really good. a ton of comedians stopped comedy. So as soon as the pandemic rolls around, I start doing shows by dumpsters and freeways and parks and whenever I can, because my thinking was, if I can figure out how I write in my writing process, I could there fast forward my progression, because if everybody stopped, by the time the world opens up, I'll still be well versed.
You'll be caught up.
I'll be caught up.
Yeah.
And so that entire pandemic, that's all I did. And I remember telling my family too. My mom was really worried about it, and my wife was too. And I told them, I was like, hey, if you guys want me to come to dinner, just let me know 3 weeks before. I'll quarantine before I come see you guys. But if you guys need me, I'm going to be in LA. I'm going to be in Riverside. I'm going to be wherever there's live comedy. If there's an open mic, I'm going to be there. If it's 1 minute on the mic or 5 minutes on the mic, I'm going to take all that time to just try and get better and grind this thing out. So like the pandemic really helped me in that sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So then that's when you met the digital marketing guys, or you got into that?
Yeah, so I ended up working for a comedy club for a little bit, and I was a server. I would obviously go do some time on stage whenever an opportunity presented itself. But there was one night we had ended up cleaning up a show, and this lady, she had tipped me 63 cents in coins. And then I had made like a little joke. I was like, look at how hard you work for such little, you know? And then my current boss kept texting me and goes, hey man, give me a call if you're looking for something different. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then sure enough, I hit my manager up, and then he's like, yo, come and work and try this out. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, I've been there ever
Blew
since.
up.
Yeah.
And then how's the comedy going now?
It's okay. This year I have to come back fully. I had a baby 16 months ago, so like my focus when I had my daughter was, I didn't care. Not that I didn't care about comedy, but I knew that I had to be a dad first.
You got to be a dad first.
And
absolutely.
I didn't want to miss the first steps. I didn't want to miss the first words. And I knew that I owed it to my partner to be there for her for that year. So comedy kind of took a back seat. And I told myself, after she turned 1, I'll come back and I'll make sure that it's like I never left. And then sure enough, my daughter gets older. And then I'm like, I just want to stay home with her.
Yeah.
I was like, I just want to stay home with her.
Yeah.
And then now, this year, it's like, now I got to get back to the grind.
Yeah.
But now it's clear. I know what it takes. I know what I need to do, and it's just, I gotta put my foot on the pedal and just keep running it. Yeah.
So, just to kind of wrap up, like I want to kind of go back to the whole veterans thing. Veterans that are out there struggling, may not know where to turn, like struggling with, that macho thing. I don't want to open up. What's your message to those guys?
Go call your homie. Call one of your homies that you trust. Just call them and be weak and be cool with that, because you're not going to be the toughest guy in the room all the time. And build yourself a support system. And when somebody calls you, you pick up and you be there for them, because you don't know when they're going to need it. That's my biggest message, is like, have a freaking support system.
Yeah.
Even if it feels like you're begging, who cares, man? Because they're going to be the ones that are going to dust you off when life comes at you. Yeah. Like, again, I have so much gratitude in my life because I've surrounded myself from people who love and like adore and respect me. So whenever I like go through some stuff, there are people there who, every time I'm down, there's always a hand up willing to help me up.
Yeah.
And for anybody who is going through tough times, like sometimes all you need is just a good support system. That's the biggest thing. And sometimes it's just really hard because a lot of these guys, they bottle it all in. And it's just like, find your group of road dogs and just be there for them.
Yeah. I think as men, like, we're taught to not show emotion, not to do that. And that amplifies when you...
100%.
Because, I mean, you're going to be talking about your feelings when you're in Iraq, like trying to just stay alive, And so you guys are trained to operate in that mindset.
We have to.
Yeah. And we have it. Like we have a saying in recovery, like, you can't save your ass and your face at the same time. And just that's hard for people, man, to just open up and say, hey, I need help. But that being weak like that is
it's part of it.
Showing strength.
Yes.
Because that's honest. You know,
and it's tough.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, man. My stepdad played a crucial part in me being open because he was the type of dude that would talk to you like a person and treat you like a person and show and wear his emotions on his sleeve. So whenever he felt some type of way, he would let you know. But he was never worried about what somebody else thought about him if he was sad, mad, or angry.
Yeah.
But he was always like, hey, you know, sometimes it's just going to be like that. And again, luckily for me, he was there to help me guide me through that too.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for that, man, you know?
Awesome.
But yeah.
Well, AJ, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having
fun,
me, dude.
man.
Yeah,
It's
this
gonna
is
be a
sick.
good episode to watch. I
Yeah.
can't wait to like rewatch it and check it out.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully we reach some people. So
Cool.
all right, brother.
Thanks, Chris.
Cool, man.